Ladies and gentlemen.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. On today we're going to be talking about Dr. Wendy Osefo from the Real Housewives of Potomac of the Real Housewives brand of Bravo. Now, if you're familiar with Dr. Wendy Osefo, she is a educated woman, 4 degrees, doctorate of political science, I believe, former professor of Johns Hopkins University. And I believe she was teaching political science there, also political commentating. She's done on various mainstream news networks and then made her transition into the Real Housewives or reality television brand. Now, Wendy Osefo and her husband, Eddie, who is a attorney, very well-to-do, upper echelon Nigerian American couple, made their way across the screen, several years ago onto the Housewives of Potomac, and really just kind of seemed to be the epitome of Nigerian and or I know they wouldn't identify as Black American, but they made themselves to be known to be educated, doing things the right way, and really promoted education as a way to financial freedom. Fast forward, unfortunately, to 2025, and it's come out that they have allegedly committed insurance fraud. Now, what took place was allegedly, of course, because nothing's been proven in court just as of yet. They've just been charged. The couple reported some jewelry stolen, and then they were later seen on social media wearing said jewelry. And this jewelry was upwards of a total of like $400 and something thousand, almost $500,000. And you would think with the level of education that they both have received that they would know not to report jewelry missing. If you're going to be a criminal, be smart, right? But I guess there's no such thing as a smart criminal, because if you're smart, you wouldn't be doing crime. They wore the jewelry on social media. And it's almost like begging to be caught, right? Like you're wearing jewelry that and not, $1,000 ring. I mean, that might have gotten overlooked. But when you're talking about $500,000 and you're someone of that level of notoriety, you would think you'd be smarter about it, right? But unfortunately not. Now, as today, it has come out another crime that looks like they're getting ready to be, or Wendy is getting ready to be charged with, is having 40 different credit cards and different aliases, one being Pam Oliver. Now, anyone who watches professional football on a regular basis will know Pam Oliver as the African American commentator. She does sports commentating on the sidelines of some NFL games. Eddie had one of his aliases was Eddie Hennessy. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up, even if you tried. Pam Oliver and Eddie Hennessy. Just let that sit in, right? So, topic for today is it's like education going wrong. Now, Wendy, here's a little bit of backstory for those who may not be familiar. Wendy is Nigerian American. I think she's first born in America. Her parents were born in Nigeria and then moved here, as I understand, or maybe just her mother. Anyway, Eddie and Wendy are from separate cultural lines, or separate tribes, if you will. And when Eddie and Wendy got married, and probably sometime before, when they're, getting pretty serious while they were dating, Eddie's family disowned him because Wendy is from allegedly this cursed family line, this cursed blood, and he was not supposed to mix with whatever this blood is, that she's supposed to have, her lineage. So Eddie's family actually disowned Wendy. It's worse than saying my mom doesn't like my wife. It's way worse than that. When you believe when you believe people are cursed, like their whole lineage is cursed, and you think you're, going to marry into that curse, and then your children and their children, and everyone's going to be cursed. It's pretty serious. And I'm not sure if it's just specific to some African cultures, but Eddie left his family, behind. He left them in the dust for this woman. He truly loves her. Now, a lot of people saying that she's the mastermind behind it. If you ever watch the show, it kind of appears that she's running things. Like he's kind of just along for the ride. He loves her. He's like, okay, happy wife, happy life. But we don't know that for sure, right? I mean, it could be both of their ideas. We'll probably know those. We'll never know those specific details about it. But the fact that I'm not going to say he disowned his family, but the fact that he married her knowing that he would be disowned from his family, speaks volumes. It really says a lot. He really, was in it to win it. This is truly a life commitment for him. And for this to happen and to be happening allegedly is truly unfortunate. Now, being that these are serious crimes, financial crimes will get you put away. DUIs, as dangerous and heinous as they are, unfortunately, a lot of times people get slaps on the wrist. You do some community service, you'll take a driver's ed course, and you'll unfortunately literally be back on the road in no time. But financial crimes is something that America doesn't play with, because America is a capitalistic society. America is driven by money, is driven by the green. And they don't like it when you play in their faces in terms of, allegedly committing financial crimes. So they could do real time behind this. This is not one of those things where they're going to go, plead guilty and, do, 3 months or the jail's over. No, this is not one of those things. This is like gonna go to trial. It's gonna have discovery. It's gonna go to trial, and they can get real time, and they can potentially get deported. Now, recall, they have 3 children, 3 American-born children. They have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and this is pretty serious. Now, I'm not gonna make fun of them or, call Wendy a hypocrite. If you ever watch the show, or if you want to go back and even watch probably like the first season when she came on very, high and mighty, if you will. I'm not going to say judgmental, but she was a little bit, toned up, condescending. Like, I have these 4 degrees. I have 4 degrees. I have 4 degrees. I mean, she said it so many times. That Degree, the company, I think Unilever, who owns Degree brand deodorant, sent her 4 degrees and 4 deodorant sticks, which are called Degrees, in a gift basket. I mean, that's just how, adamant she was about letting people know that, hey, I got 4 degrees. Hey, I got a associate's, a bachelor's, a master's, and a doctorate. Put some respect on my name. As she told one of the castmates, I remember, she said, people like you call me Dr. Wendy. And it's like, if you're not an MD, people really aren't, calling you that. I mean, respect to your PhD, but, respect to the PhDs out there. I may have one day, who knows, but I wouldn't expect for people to call me Dr., my first or last name, because I think that's still kind of, reserved for MD. Or even DDS. When you think of doctor, you think of someone in the medical field, a medical practitioner, not, an education doctorate or a political science doctorate or a doctorate of, philosophy, or, professor, and she was. But people don't generally, if you're not in a school setting, you're not getting called doctor unless you're an actual doctor, medical doctor. But I said, but respect to those who have PhDs. I have people in my family who have PH and MD, so respect. But moving forward, where do we go from here? We're just going to have to wait and see. But this is a true lesson of not just living within your means, because I know they had, I want to say during the first season, they were saying that they had probably like $1 million, somewhere close to or above $1 million in debt, student loans and stuff. Again, she has a doctorate, he has a law degree, and those are hefty price tags to complete in school. Those are very hefty. And they didn't go to, Joe Schmo College, in respect to Joe Schmo College. But they didn't go to Joe Schmo College. They went to kind of upper echelon universities. And regardless of so, PhD and JD are just high tuition costing degrees to seek after, to obtain. So it could have been a culmination of, okay, now I'm, this quote unquote celebrity, Bravo celebrity in the spotlight. And now I got to really put on. Now I got to really, have the airs about myself. I have to really look like I have more than what I have because I'm on TV. And or maybe they just got greedy. It seems like could be the case of I feel like I'm getting away with it. Or, you never know. I'm not sure if they were paying off their student loans, but 40 credit cards is a lot. It's a lot. Now, if you have a business and you have several employees and maybe you have some authorized users, I know Wendy once had a candle company. I'm not sure if it's still up and running, but still, 40 credit cards is a lot. And I'm not sure that you would have 40 authorized users for a small business. That would leave you open to someone, charging on your account on their own behalf, It's way too many people having access to your finances, to your money. But it's really sad to see. So I'm just dropping in to add my little 2 cents to that. I do wish them the best. I do think that this is going to go to trial. And they're probably going to do some time. I hope not, just because they have small children. And I always think that, well, I was going to say, I always think that like different crimes are worse. But I guess a crime is a crime is a crime. But I do wish them the best. But hey, if this is true, it's really important. It's theft is what it is. When you do financial crimes, it's theft. It's really what it boils down to. You're stealing in some way, form, or fashion, So I just hate that they felt the need to do that. I feel like with their brand being tied to Bravo, they could have pivoted that into so many different ways to make money. So many different ways. I mean, utilize those 4 degrees, right? Like people would have taken courses from her. She, have some online courses. Get into your political commentating, have your YouTube channel going, because if you notice, a lot of celebrities are really getting to being on YouTube. And some of that is just because, Hollywood is drying up and they have to find ways to make money. But sometimes, in some aspects, it's just extra ways to make money. It's like, why not get into the podcasting? I saw what Shannon Sharp made, or Shannon Sharp made with the, Cat Williams interview. Let me, take a peek at it and see if I can, do something just as grand or close. So people are really getting into the podcasting space. So maybe her candles weren't a hit, But there's so many different things that she could have pivoted into. Especially being, educated, being Nigerian. That's a whole new platform that Nigerian Americans don't have. You don't see a lot of Nigerian Americans on television that have quote unquote made it. You don't. And so that would have been a great way to represent her culture there. And to turn, do a Nigerian American cook show. I mean, there's just so many different options. with a platform like Bravo that she could have went into, like someone like Candy Burris, who even though she didn't start out as a housewife, she started out with being a member of Escape R&B group. She got fired out of that group. She kept working, kept writing. She wrote for Destiny's Child. She wrote for TLC and many, many different other R&B groups and even other genres. I mean, Candy Burris, is a phenomenal writer. And she just kept working. And then somewhere down the line, she had a small little solo career, didn't go too far, but it, I'm sure it kept her bills paid. But at some point she was offered the Real Housewives of Atlanta. She bid into that, and Mama worked. I mean, Mama worked that thing like crazy. She came on the show. She had the same house that she bought, I think, with one of like her first few checks when she was with her group Escape. It was years until, and I believe she gave that house to her mother. It was years before when she, started making, I guess you can call it Bravo money, before she purchased like what I would consider a mansion. Years. She was well established. When she got with Bravo, she got into producing plays, which started bringing in extra money. And she eventually made it to Broadway, but she would do like plays in Atlanta and things like that. And then she got into Broadway and producing plays on Broadway. She got into acting on some other shows on different networks. She eventually got married. She and her husband opened up, I think they have 2 or 3 restaurants. I know one is Blaze, which is like a steakhouse that's named after her son. Then they have the Old Lady Gang, that's a restaurant with her aunties, her 3 aunties and her mom, 2 or 3 aunties and her mom. And which, restaurants, they struggle, but they're doing okay. And they've opened different locations, and she's just really worked her way up. Now, I'm crossing my fingers, not saying that she's committing fraud somewhere, but what I'm saying is, here's someone that and Candy Burris talks about living within your means. She talks about it's not always the smartest or the prettiest or the person that can sing the best. It's the person that works their ass off that will succeed. And that's exactly, what she has done. And so Wendy definitely had, and Candy Burris is a perfect person that she could have reached out to. I know she reached out to Peter Thomas to try to open up a restaurant. I don't know why she would choose Peter Thomas. If you're familiar with anything about Bravo, you can Google that. I don't like to talk about people. But Candy Burris is a perfect person for her to have. And who knows, maybe she has, tried to reach out. But Candy Burris is the perfect person to reach out. Hey, we've got this wonderful platform. I just kind of want to pick your brain to see what do you think that I should pivot into, or what do you see some options for me? Because Candy worked her way through, and her life really changed with Bravo. She used it for the better, for the betterment of herself, her family, her marriage, her mother, her daughter, her children. Now that she has children with her husband, she really, laid low, did the little Bravo, drama game that you got to do. You got to bring a little bit of drama, but she played it smart. And that's what it's about. It's when you get an opportunity, what are you going to do with it? Don't squander it away. Now, can Wendy and her husband come back from this? Legally, I think it'll probably take some time. It depends on I think this will be like federal charges. It depends on the level of intensity the prosecution comes. The government comes at her and won't them, it depends on that level of intensity, or if they're going to get a slap on the wrist. But even now, because there's going to be some restitution regardless, right? Even now, I would, instead of, heading out to BravoCon, I'd be talking about at some point you kind of, if you're going to plead guilty and you're going to plead guilty, I would start trying to save face. I would start eating humble pie. I would start trying to pay things back. I would get on that path. When the vets come at you and things like that, like, and the evidence is piling against you, and chance, you're going to be found guilty, but if you're going to plead innocent, and I'm not sure how she would do it in this particular, circumstance, you really better have some ducks in the row, because like I said, they have 3 children. And that's what's most important in this particular case is their kids, Now, I know some people will say, well, they should have been thinking about their kids when they were, filling out 40 credit card applications, or, filling out that, alleged insurance fraud, scheme when they were hacking that up. And all those things are true. But, now we are here. And so what do you do now that you're here? So I'm hoping that I always pretty much say I hope for the best, because I'm just not a person that wishes bad on somebody, unless it's like somebody that's hurt kids or elderly or animals, right? But I guess I'm a little bit more lenient with financial crimes than I am with ones that are physical or, cause trauma. But financial crimes can cause trauma, you never know in certain circumstances. So we'll keep watching this case to see what's going to happen. It just seems like the Real Housewives, it's like, it's been a time. It has been a time, and it has been a day. I hope that they get it together. But thanks for watching.